From Shadows to Legacy, The Orphan's Oath. In the sun-baked outskirts of Umuora, a rural community tucked between red earth roads and aging palm trees in southeastern Nigeria, the world ended quietly for a boy named Richard. He was 8 years old when the fire came. It happened on a market evening when the air still smelled of roasted corn and kerosene lamps flickered awake. Richard had been waiting at home, tracing shapes in the dust with a stick, expecting his parents to return with laughter and stories from the roadside stalls. Instead, villagers came running, voices sharp, faces pale. The market warehouse had caught fire. By the time anyone noticed, it was too late. Richard's parents never walked out. The burial swallowed him whole. Drums beat low like wounded hearts. Women wailed. Men stared at the ground. Richard stood motionless beside two fresh mounds of earth, clutching a piece of his father's burnt wristwatch, its glass cracked but stubbornly intact. He did not cry. Something inside him had gone quiet. With no close relatives willing to take him in, the village elders handed him over to Mrs. Ezine, a widow known for her public generosity and private sharpness. She lived at the edge of Umuora in a cement house that looked solid from afar but felt cold the moment one stepped inside. At first, she smiled. "God loves orphans," she said loudly whenever visitors came. Behind closed doors, her voice changed. Mrs. Ezine had 3 children of her own: Avan, the eldest, tall and cruel; Nkechi, sharp-tongued and cunning; and Obi, the youngest, who learned cruelty by watching. To them, Richard was not family, he was labor, proof of their mother's kindness. His days began before dawn, fetching water from a stream far beyond the village path, sweeping the compound while others slept, washing plates with cracked fingers. If he slowed, Avan reminded him with a slap or shove. "You eat only after you walk," Mrs. Ezine would say, eyes hard. Insults became routine. Hunger became normal. One afternoon, after hours of clearing weeds under the burning sun, Richard sat down briefly and began to eat the cold food left in his bowl. He had barely taken 3 mouthfuls when Avan stormed in. "Who told you to eat?" Avan barked. Before Richard could speak, Avan grabbed the bowl and flung it into the waste pit. "Finish your chores first, useless orphan." Something broke. Richard lunged. Years of silence erupted into fists and tears. Avan was stronger, but Richard fought with desperation, drawing blood before being overpowered. When Mrs. Ezine arrived, she screamed, not in fear, but outrage. "This boy is dangerous," she cried to neighbors. "He attacked my son." That night, as whispers spread and punishment loomed, Richard made a decision that would fracture his childhood forever. He ran. The road beyond Umuora was unforgiving. Hunger followed him like a curse. He survived on discarded fruit, rainwater, and whatever kindness he could steal from the world. One night, hiding near a bush path, he heard animals circling, hyenas, their eyes glowing like judgment. Panic flooded him. In his fear, a darker thought emerged. He imagined going back, imagined poisoning Mrs. Ezine's food, ending everything. The idea felt warm, justified. Then another voice rose within him, his mother's. She used to tell him stories at night, her voice calm and steady. One story stood out. Her father cheated of his land, choosing honesty over revenge. Years later, that same integrity saved the family. "Evil grows, but goodness outlives us," she had said. Richard dropped the stone in his hand and wept. That night, rain scattered the animals, and something inside Richard hardened, not into hatred, but resolute. Weeks later, weak and feverish, Richard collapsed near a roadside market on the outskirts of Aba. A trader named Mr. Ikena, grey-bearded and observant, noticed the boy's condition. "You've been running from something," he said. Richard did not answer. He simply accepted the food. Ikenna took him along with the caravan to the city. There, Richard found work sweeping floors in a small bookshop owned by Mr. Okafo, a quiet man who believed in second chances. In exchange, Richard slept on a mat behind stacked books and ate regular meals for years. Books became refuge. Education followed slowly, painfully. Nightmares still came of fire, hunger, and Mrs. Ezine's voice. But Richard learned. He grew. He earned certificates through grit and sleepless nights. One day, the past returned. Avan appeared in Aba, older, broken, desperate. He accused Richard of theft, hoping to destroy what he had built. The old rage surged. Richard chose mercy. "Leave," he told Avan quietly. "I owe you nothing, but I won't ruin you." Before disappearing, Avan dropped a truth like poison. Your parents' fire wasn't an accident. The revelation burned, but Richard again chose integrity. He pursued justice quietly. Mrs. Ezine was eventually arrested, her public holiness undone by truth. Years passed. Richard married Annie, a woman whose patience healed what cruelty had fractured. Together, they built a home rich in laughter and warmth. They had 3 children. One quiet evening, as rain tapped gently on the roof, Richard sat before them. "This," he said softly, "is the story of the life of your father." They listened, wide-eyed, silent. He spoke of suffering, of temptation, of choosing light when darkness made sense. When you are justified to do wrong, that is when doing right matters most. The fire crackled. Annie squeezed his hand, and somewhere in the shadows of memory, a small boy who once ran barefoot into the night finally rested. Who knows, perhaps these stories would travel forward, protecting his children one day, just as his mother's story once saved him. From ashes to, not just glory, but legacy. Now this one is from me to you, lovely and attentive listener, whoever you are. The lessons here are not told only to the children by the fire who listened to their father's survival story because he lived to tell it. The lessons here are for you too. First, cruelty often survives because it is convenient for others to believe lies. The neighbors who gathered that night did not strike Richard, yet their silence and quick judgment helped injustice stand. This is a reminder that wrongdoing is not only committed by those who act, but also by those who refuse to question. Second, hardship does not always arrive to destroy. Sometimes it arrives to redirect. The road that pushed Richard out of one village was the same road that led him to a city where his life could finally begin. Not every closed door is punishment. Some are quiet rescues. Third, help often comes from strangers, not because they owe us anything, but because compassion still exists in the world. A wanderer, a merchant, a family with open doors. Each appeared briefly, yet each altered the course of a life. Small acts done once can echo for decades. Fourth, memory is power. The stories we carry, especially the ones told in moments of love, can interrupt cycles of hatred at their most dangerous point. What Richard remembered did not change his past, but it protected his future. And finally, stories themselves are a form of inheritance. Wealth can vanish, strength can fade, but a story told with honesty can travel forward, shaping choices long after the teller's voice grows quiet. Perhaps that is why this story was told at all, so that those listening might recognize their own moments of choice and remember that even in the darkest places, a life can still rise, slowly, painfully, from ashes to glory.